Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and I'm so delighted you've joined me for part 2 of our story tonight. So before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with part 2 of our story. Maybe she's shy, said Tasha, brushing away some cut hair from the back of her client's collar. Remember what Dawn Saroy used to be like? Oh my word, that woman was so timid, as quiet as a church mouse she was. Would never say boo to a goose. She'd sit here in one of these chairs for years on end. We never got a peep out of her, did we, Rona? No, we didn't. Believe me, continued Tasha, it wasn't for want of trying. We'd ask her questions, and she'd give us ambiguous, vague, one-word answers. Sometimes we didn't know what she was saying. She would speak in muted tones. It was really annoying. One day she started to talk, and when she did, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Didn't I, Rona? I got the shock of my life. She was shocked, that's for sure. Well, it was like poking a dead jellyfish that suddenly comes back to life. I was the one who used to work on her hair, you see. So I really was startled when she started talking. She admitted to me that she'd been crippled by an excruciating bout of painful shyness and social awkwardness for years. She told us people always misunderstood her evasiveness for being rude. She admitted to hiding from people any chance she got. She was terribly uncomfortable in all kinds of social interactions. At the time, she was seeing a therapist who dared her to try and make conversation with me in our salon, to step out of her comfort zone, so to speak, to overcome her fear of being social. These days, you can't shut Dawn up. She's one of our biggest talkers in town, so the therapy actually worked. Yes, I know Dawn Saroy very well indeed, but I had absolutely no idea she used to be a shrinking violet. You'd have never have guessed that for a moment. But if you must know, I really don't think my next-door neighbour is bashfully shy like Dawn used to be. I'd say she's aloof, but not shy. Definitely not shy. I mean, would you hang around on your front deck in a bright red skimpy bikini for any bystanders to see you if you were shy? I don't think that's bashful behaviour, do you? I mean, she knows I can see her very well from my yard. Well, we've established she's not shy, agreed Rona. Shy people shrink away in a corner. They don't do anything to draw attention to themselves, do they? And I agree with Lilac. A skimpy red bikini gets your attention. Is there any other reason you think she's not shy? Or is that just it? Well, the stuff she listens to on the radio. It's pretty out there. I can't imagine a demure person listening to stuff like that. But of course I do stand to be corrected. How do you know what she listens to on the radio, Lilac? Asked Rona incredulously. You're not spying on your next-door neighbour, are you? She teased. She waved a mischievous finger at Lilac. Who's been a naughty, naughty girl? Maybe you know what she's watched on television last night, what she ate for dinner yesterday. Go on, tell us. Your secret's safe with us, Lilac. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Listen to the two of you going on like this, said Lilac, brushing as red as a field of poppies. Honestly, Rona, you do know how to stir the pot. I am no snoop. But if you call noticing things snooping, well then I plead guilty. I told you I know nothing about my new next-door neighbour. I've been telling you that since I came to the salon this morning. Let's just say when I was dropping over that apple pie, I heard what she was listening to on the radio when I knocked on the front door. It was not hard to hear that radio show, even if I'd been blocking my ears. Put it this way, the preacher's voice was booming so loudly, it made the glasses, well, it would have made the glasses on any table rattle rather precariously. And I'm not exaggerating about that either. That was quite some sermon that he was preaching, let me tell you. All about the dangers of hell and how we all deserve to go there. And that's where we will end up burning in the fire without a repentant heart. That kind of thing. Wow, said Rona. She was listening to depressing stuff like that. That is so bleak. It's not exactly cheery, is it? It would seem so. The radio was turned up on full volume. Goodness gracious! Your next-door neighbour is turning out to be quite interesting. I'm getting more curious about her the more we speak about her. Let's see, she roasts on her patio all day like a hot potato, wearing an itsy-bitsy red bikini, without any polka dots, I might add, slathers herself with baby oil like there's no tomorrow, lies indulgently on a sun lounger all day reading a book, doesn't appear to have any job, and listens to unconventional radio programmes that would make us hurry off to the First Catholic Confession Chamber, or whatever you call those things, to confess our sins, lest we ourselves should be thrown into the fiery pit of hell. Furthermore, the young lady doesn't answer the door to you, Lilac, when you knock on it. She leaves you no more than a note, with a vague thank you for your apple pie, which means you still don't even know her name. There's something not right about all this. She's clearly hiding something, don't you think? I don't agree, said Tasha, shaking her head vigorously. I still say she's painfully shy. That's my humble opinion. Just because you're shy doesn't mean you wouldn't wear a skimpy red bikini. I mean, she was privately sunning herself on her front deck, wasn't she? I mean, what's wrong with that? Lots of people do that, whether they're shy or not. It's normal behaviour. Lilac saw her sunbathing on her front deck, but nobody else did. People are entitled to do what they want to do in private. Maybe she's religious. That's why she listens to that radio stuff and has extreme views about things. Nothing wrong with that, if you ask me. It's a free world. We should be encouraged to find our own truth. If listening to a hell and damnation preacher floats her boat, I say, why not? It's so typical of you to be so practical, Tash. But you do make some good points there, Rona agreed. Maybe we're being far too judgmental. I have to say, Lilac, when you came here for your appointment at the salon this morning, we were both so excited about seeing you. Not that we aren't always excited, but I thought you'd be able to tell us much more about your next-door neighbour. I'm so disappointed you have so little to tell us about her. Everything you've told us about her makes us more and more intrigued. Well, I wish I knew more about the mystery young lady, Lilac admitted. But you know the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. If you must know, I thought the other way round, actually. I thought when I came here to the hair salon this morning that you two would be able to tell me all about my next-door neighbour, not the other way round. Hold on a moment, Lilac. Where would you get that absurd idea from? We're a hairdressing salon, not a private investigator's office, I'd like to remind you. And let's not forget, you're the one living next door to this new woman who's moved to town. So you should know a lot more about her than we do. Well, I wouldn't entirely agree with you, Rona. People talk in a small town, don't they? Word gets around like wildfire. And it always starts here in your hair salon, which is why the two of you tend to know everything that's going on in town. That has been my experience to date. Well, that's true to a certain extent, Lilac. But to be fair, everybody's talking about your new next-door neighbour. She's been seen around town, buying stuff. But when people say anything to her in passing, try to greet her with a warm, friendly smile, she's just very abrupt. Always seems to be in a tearing hurry to get away. It's like squeezing an empty tomato ketchup container. You can't get anything out of the woman. A day later, when Lilac had decided to buy some stewing meat to make a casserole for dinner, she found herself standing rather aimlessly in a long queue at the butcher's. Lilac couldn't believe her luck when she found herself standing behind her elusive next-door neighbour, whose long, sleek, dark, shiny hair smelt of apple shampoo. Lilac was certain she'd also caught a whiff of the familiar coconut oil that she used on her person. This might be the perfect opportunity to get better acquainted with her new next-door neighbour by starting up a friendly conversation. At first the young lady did not appear to see Lilac, so Lilac tapped her gently on the shoulder to get her immediate attention. The young lady turned around so abruptly. She looked at Lilac with wide eyes. At first she appeared like a deer caught in headlights, rather startled. But when she realized it was Lilac that had tapped her, an expression of relief washed over her pretty face. "Oh, I'm so sorry to give you a start, love," said Lilac apologetically. "I thought I recognized you. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm your next-door neighbour, Lilac Evans. It's good to finally meet you close up. We've only nodded at each other from a distance, haven't we? We've been a bit like two passing ships in the night. Fancy meeting you here in the butcher of all things. Mind you, Mr. Metcalf has the best beef in these parts, you know. I'm told he only sources grass-fed beef. You could never get this kind of quality meat in a supermarket. I must recommend the homemade sausages he makes. Mr. Metcalf has won awards for those sausages, you know. My favourite is the pork, apple and sage sausages. You've got to give them a try. They're incredibly good. That's if you like pork, of course." The woman's face remained expressionless as she just stared at Lilac, as if looking through a clear pane of glass. Finally she nodded. "I like pork. I'll bear that in mind for next time. So you live next door to me. You're Lilac, then?" "That's right, I'm Lilac, and it is so good to finally make your acquaintance, dear. I have been meaning to introduce myself. I did come around to your house with an apple pie for you. I knocked on the door, but you must have been out. Your radio was on at the time." The woman nodded and gave Lilac a watery smile. She really wasn't much of a talker, was she? Getting her to say more than a couple of words was rather like extracting blood out of a stone. But Lilac was not willing to give up on the young lady. Not yet. Lilac continued to be intrigued by her next-door neighbour, wondering what this young lady was actually hiding. She was definitely hiding something. It was not natural to be so equivocatingly standoffish and non-committal, unless, of course, Trish Esther was absolutely right, and the young lady was painfully shy. But Lilac did not think that this was the case. Her instincts told her otherwise. Lilac shrugged her shoulders to make polite conversation. It really was a tad embarrassing, being neighbours with this young lady, and not speaking to her beyond a nod in passing. She really wanted to change the dynamics of their relationship. But this stranger was not making it remotely easy for her, so it would seem her fruitless efforts were met with little success, as she struggled to find something fitting to say. She cleared her throat. "Tell me, dear, how are you finding the neighbourhood here?" There was a stiff, rather uncomfortable pause, as if the woman was reluctant to answer her question. "Oh, it's charming, isn't it?" Lilac was unimpressed by the young lady's prevaricating nondescript words. What did charming actually mean? It was so cliché. It could mean anything. It was like stating the blindingly obvious. The small town was absolutely charming, but it was also so much more than that. Lilac bit her lip awkwardly. She wanted to find out so much more about this enigmatic young lady. She would keep officiously prodding, even if it killed her. She didn't like to have an awkward, strained relationship with her next-door neighbour. It would be good to finally become friends. "I imagine this neighbourhood must be very different from where you've come from, my dear." She gave the woman an encouraging smile. "Yes, very." As the queue shuffled forward, Lilac asked again, "And where was that? I hope you don't mind my asking." "New York," said the woman. Lilac inwardly grimaced. Talk about being blatantly vague and indeterminate. This was New York State, for goodness sake. It was such a huge, widespread place. The woman's off-the-cuff remarks would cover a massive grey shadowy area of possibility. "You mean you lived in the city? Queens, perhaps? Brooklands, maybe?" she asked inquiringly, hoping the woman would be much more pacific. "Yes, something like that." Lilac had a disingenuous, rather wooden smile on her face that was so large it was actually making her cheeks hurt. She wanted to appear friendly, to encourage her neighbour to talk, but by the looks of things she was not getting very far. Lilac would be a useless interrogator, she decided to herself. She still knew absolutely nothing about her neighbour. "I hope you don't mind my asking, and you don't think I'm a little bit impertinent, but, I notice you don't appear to work. Only you're at home a lot of the time on your deck reading a book. Are you taking a leave of absence from your job, perhaps? Having a bit of a much-needed break?" "I'm retired," said the young lady. Lilac was taken aback, thrown off her pedestal. She looked completely bewildered. "You retired? But you're so young. I mean, you can't be a day over 30. I'm in my 50s, you know, and I still work from home. Still need to bring the coppers rolling in," she chuckled. "I guess I'm just lucky," said the woman. "I don't need to work." "Well, you are very lucky then. Sorry, do forgive me," said Lilac, "but I don't even know your name." "It's Petty Wainscoat," said the woman. For a moment Lilac felt triumphant, as if the slot machine she had injected some cash in had finally responded in kind with a reward, even if it was rather meagre. She had a name for the mysterious stranger. That was a promising start, even if it was a little one. "Well, it's a lovely name, dear. I haven't heard it before. The name Petty, I mean. It's unusual, but very pretty." "It's kind of you to say." "It's not foreign by any chance. The name Petty, I mean." "No, it's American. I'm American," said the woman, looking put out. Petty Waincoat seemed relieved to have reached the front of the queue, where she could hastily abandon her conversation with Lilac and fully absorb herself in buying meat from the local butcher. "What will it be, madam?" came Mr. Medcoff's friendly, upbeat voice. "I'll have some of those pork chops, please." "Good choice, madam. Very tender. How many?" said the butcher, placing chops in a plastic bag. "6 will do me fine, thank you very much." The butcher handed her the pork chops. "There you go, madam. Have a very good day, and enjoy the chops." Petty Wainscoat turned around for a brief second to nod at Lilac politely. "Good to meet you, Lilac. I must go now." Before the woman could walk away, Lilac immediately said, "I'm so sorry, dear. I hope you don't think I'm meddling in your own business, but I notice you spending a lot of time sunbathing on your wooden deck. It's just the weather out there recently has been such a scorcher. I'm sure you agree. You can tell me, of course, to mind my own business, but I worry about people like you baking in the sun for so long, with all that skin cancer going around. Just take care of yourself, dear. That's all I'm saying. I'm just watching out for you. You've got such a lovely complexion, but the sun can do no end of damage to the skin, you know." Petty seemed to glare at Lilac for a brief moment with a "how dare you" kind of look written all over her face. Then she promptly sashayed out of the butchery with an annoyed swagger in her gait, swinging the small plastic bag in her hand that contained the chops, as if the last thing she needed was to be judged by a snoopy but well-meaning next-door neighbour. Lilac couldn't blame her for being affronted. Her unguarded words had seamlessly just slipped out of her mouth like melted butter that slides down a corn cob, before she could actually stop them. She was sure she had offended Petty Wainscroft, and that was the last thing she intended doing. She was looking out for her, that's all, but it had come out all desperately wrong. Lilac began silently cursing herself. "What did you say that for, you silly old mare? Petty is going to think you're a good-for-nothing nosy busybody. And, of course, she's probably exactly right about you." The following morning, when Lilac was out in her yard, attending to her beloved rose bushes under the shade of her huge navy blue straw hat, with Buddy parked again in his usual shaded position under the sycamore tree, where he was contentedly drifting off into a deep, very comfortable sleep, which was becoming increasingly more common these days, as Lilac's dog was getting along in years, and was not as alert and as sharp as he used to be. Buddy remained blissfully fast asleep when Lilac noticed a silver Mercedes rolling up her next-door neighbour's driveway. Now this was curiously interesting. Someone was actually paying Petty a visit, which was a first time, and Lilac was determined to get a bird's-eye view of this curious stranger. It might tell her a lot more about her next-door neighbour. Lilac didn't consider herself to be a snoop, but she couldn't help the insatiable curiosity that held her to ransom on this morning, as she had grown increasingly more and more intrigued by Petty Waincloth, and her strange antics over the last few weeks that had certainly inspired her curiosity. She steadily manoeuvred herself into a position behind some high-growing shrubs that bordered both properties like a half-hearted dividing hedge. She knew that if she clandestinely peered through the branches, that she'd be able to get a close-up view of the stranger. She watched the man climb out of his silver Mercedes, slamming the door behind him so loudly that Lilac almost jumped out of her skin. She noticed the young man appeared rather edgy and nervous. He looked up and down the street, to the left and right, almost as if he was very troubled that someone might potentially be following him. For a brief second he almost looked directly in Lilac's direction, as if he was seeing her peering at him through the foliage. She wondered if he sensed he was being watched by her. Who was he, she wondered? A boyfriend of Petty's, perhaps? He was reasonably good-looking, she thought, tall and slender, with well-developed shoulders and a long angular face, a very neat, perfectly straight nose, with windswept brown hair and an olive complexion. His features were quite chiselled, she thought, giving him an almost aristocratic look. She noted he was wearing casual white chinos and a navy blue cotton shirt, where the sleeves were rolled up, along with a pair of tanned loafers. The 6-foot man strolled up rather casually to the front door, but his casual stroll did have an apprehensive edge, almost as if he didn't believe he would be greeted with a rapturous welcome from Petty Waincroft. Lilac wondered if he was a spurned lover, looking to make amends with Petty, and afraid of being spat out by the young lady. She watched the gentleman knocking on the door rather timidly, and surprise, surprise, there was no answer. The young man increased his light tap to a loud rap. To the point of rudeness, he began knocking in earnest on the door. He was resolutely determined to get that door answered, and was staring up at the upper floor of the cottage towards the window. Finally he called out, "I know you are there, Pet. Please don't be like this. Come down, will you? I saw you twitching that curtain. I can hear the radio on. I know you're in. Don't play these games with me." The young man in exasperation rubbed a hand impatiently through his hair, and after some time the door was abruptly pushed open. Even though Lilac was watching the scene from a small distance away, she noticed that Petty's body language was not best pleased to see this stranger. She stood there awkwardly, wearing black leggings and a loose-fitting pink T-shirt. There was a disagreeable, disgruntled and rather peeved expression written all over her face. Lilac was surprised that she could hear the rather disjointed conversation between the two of them. This was a plus. She might learn something more about her ambiguous neighbour, she hoped. "What are you doing here, Ryan? I thought I told you not to come here. Why the hell won't you ever listen to a word I say? The only reason I gave you this address was for you to forward that parcel to me. But the last thing I expected was you to come here of all things. This is crazy. I thought we agreed about this, that for the time being you should stay far away from me. You can never be too cautious, you know," she said, looking rather nervously down the driveway. "Are you not just a little pleased to see me? Go on, Pet, admit it. Have you not missed me?" "Of course I haven't missed you. Nor am I pleased to see you, Ryan. You shouldn't be here. You could have been followed. Do you realise that? Do you even care about that? You could be putting me in mortal danger, not to mention yourself. But do you care? Obviously not. If you did care about me, you would stay the hell away. I warned you not to come here, but I should have known you would never ever listen. You couldn't help yourself, could you? You just couldn't help yourself. I'm sorry, but I miss you, pet. It's impossible keeping away from you. You're like a drug to me. I can't get enough of you, and I miss you so much. Well, you're going to have to curb this addiction of yours, or you'll get us both into hot water. And I don't fancy getting boiled alive like a lobster, eaten for breakfast. This is not going to work out if you keep coming around here. How do you know you weren't followed? Someone might have been watching you. You could have led them straight to me. This is a big risk you're taking coming here. There could even be a tracker on your phone or your car. Did you stop to think about that for a moment? I bet you didn't. You can be so lackadaisical, Ryan, about these very important things. You have no idea what I'm up against, what these ruthless people are capable of. I haven't told you half of it, Ryan, to spare you the gruesome details, but believe me, you don't want to know. I'm not stupid, Petal. Don't cast me in such a negative light. I admit it, someone put a tracker on my cell, but I didn't bring my cell with me today. I'm using a burner phone instead to be on the safe side. And the car I used to get here belongs to a good friend of mine, so there can't be a tracker on it. I took great precautions to come here today, and I assure you, I don't believe anyone could have been following me. But if they put a tracker on your cell, what else could they potentially do, Ryan? Tracking technology today is very sophisticated. Don't underestimate these people. They'll stop at nothing to find me. I can promise you that. These people don't give up in a hurry. Don't you get that, Ryan? Don't you realise what I've been dealing with? But it's been 5 years, Petal. Surely they have other things to concern themselves with these days, that you're not the complete focus of all their attention. Petty almost growled at Ryan. Give up? Are you kidding, Ryan? People like this, they never give up. While Dirk Underwood is languishing in that prison, he has people on the outside working for him, eager to do his bidding. They've been looking for me for years, Ryan. There are eyes absolutely everywhere. You cannot be too careful. Dirk Underwood will not rest until he's got to me, until I'm pushing up the daisies. Why do you think that I was given a brand new identity? And why I was under a witness protection program for so long, and still would be if I hadn't finally put my foot down? The authorities know all too well that my life is in grievous danger, and so is yours, just by your association with me. You're only alive because they need you at the moment, to hopefully lead them directly to me. If they hurt you, they upset me. And Dirk Underwood would be very happy to see that happen, as he wants to inflict as much pain on me, emotionally and physically, as possible. For that very reason, even my own parents are living under protective custody with brand new identities. This has affected my entire family. It's been insanely tough on the all of us. And I don't need you throwing a spanner in the works like this. Sometimes I wonder why I did what I did. Why I testified against one of the most dangerous movers and shakers in that drug cartel. Every day, every single day, I'm living in abject terror of my life, wondering if this is the day that I'm going to be hung, drawn and quartered. And I want you to know one thing, Ryan. When they kill me, it's going to be a slow, painful death. They're not going to put me out of my misery quickly. No, they're going to make me suffer. You did what you did for your brother, Petal, because you're incredibly brave. You've got a lion heart. You wanted to avenge Simon's murder. And Dirk Underwood put your brother's head in a plastic bag That monster, that grotesque evil monster, is now behind bars, and that's a very good start. He killed your brother in such a barbaric, savage way, and thanks to your courageously testifying in court against him, he's behind bars for the rest of his earthly life. Good riddance to bad rubbish. That's exactly what he deserves. I'm only upset that he never got the death penalty. It's a pity in New York State the death penalty was found unconstitutional since 2004, I believe. And that's why those thugs were operating here, in New York State. They knew if they were caught, they'd never ever be sentenced to death. It was clever thinking on their parts, if you ask me. Covering their backs, so to speak. But that man, he got everything he deserved.
Yes, but you don't get it, Ryan. Everything that I did is for what? Tell me, what's it for? I'll never get my brother Simon back. Never. He's never coming back to me. He's gone for good. Why the hell did I get involved with such dangerous people? So volatile. And to think that I testified in court against that Dirk Underwood. And believed that after I'd done such a thing, that I could live a normal life. There was such delusional thinking on my part. I was so incredibly naive, so ignorant. I don't even know what normal is anymore.
You know very well why Simon got involved with them, Petal. He was completely addicted to drugs. He couldn't pay up, so they recruited him to work for them and to do their bidding. And when he let them down in some way, they brutally murdered him by way of example. That's what they do in the drug cartels, you know. So that people get the message, if you mess with us, this is what's going to happen to you. Do you know how many bodies they found under that warehouse floor? Victims of Dirk Underwood. Too many to count, I believe.
If I'd known the kind of life that I would lead after testifying against Dirk Underwood, I don't think I'd have done it all. I didn't know it would be this tough. You know, wasn't I crazy to pretend to be that man's girlfriend? So that I could find out everything about him? Because I've seen things, Ryan, that would make your skin crawl. Do you know I go to bed at night and I can't sleep? I'm always having nightmares because of that man.
Believe me, I know exactly what you've been through, Petal.
No, you don't. That's the problem, Ryan. You're clueless. You have no idea.
You're worrying too much, Petal. I mean, look at you. Your appearance has changed significantly since the surgery. I mean, you look completely different, don't you? I'm your boyfriend, for goodness sake, and I barely recognize you. Your nose is straight, your cheeks more defined, and you never had a tan before. Even if they were to see you, they'd never recognize you. You've got a new identification, a brand new name, a brand new appearance. No one would know who you are. Even if they were to follow me here, they would think I was visiting a distant cousin or friend. They'd never guess it was you in a million years. I'm quite sure of that.
I wouldn't be so sure, Ryan, said Petty, shaking her head defiantly. I'm not the first person to use plastic surgery to change my appearance, you know. Nor will I be the last. It's the biggest and oldest trick in the book. These people are cunning. They're ruthless. They'll stop at nothing to find me. Surely even you realise that now. And even if I don't look like the person they're looking for, they'll stop at nothing to ensure that they are absolutely certain that I am not her. And if they see you visiting me here, they know you were my boyfriend, and that my so-called relationship with Dirk Underwood was just a farce. They've been hoping and praying that you'll lead them straight to me. Don't you get that? I was told never ever to get in touch with you again for those specific reasons. I was a fool getting in touch with you again. I've opened a can of worms that I simply cannot close. I was warned to sever all contact with you and anybody else I knew, but I wouldn't listen. I just couldn't do it.
Because you love me, Petal, and I love you. And we've got each other's backs.
It's not that simple, Ryan. You've got to believe me. These people, they're far more clever and cunning than you can actually appreciate. I don't think you realise that.
But they won't find you, will they? This is a small, unassuming town. No one would ever come here looking for you. I mean, this is a town not many people even know exists. That's why you came to live here, is it not?
I'm not sure coming to a small town was actually a good idea after all, Ryan.
Why do you say that?
Because people are very curious about me. I seem to have drawn so much attention to myself. Everybody wants to greet me. Everybody wants to ask me questions. Everybody wants to know about me and my life. I was warned about this, but I didn't pay attention. I didn't listen. I'm so mulishly stubborn. I'm always doing my own thing, so impulsively. I never ever listen to sound, judicious advice. And I feel like a fish out of water in this small town. And I've got such a nosy next-door neighbour. You wouldn't believe that woman. The audacity of her! She is so impertinently asking all these awkward questions about me. And I need that like a hole in the head. She was banging on the door the other day with an apple pie in her hand, trying to get familiar and personally acquainted with me. In a busy metropolis like New York, that would never have happened. Maybe I'm a lot more vulnerable out here than I realise. People look at you. They're naturally fascinated by you. They want to know everything. It's driving me insane. And the more insouciant I become, the more inquisitive they get. So here we are. That's the end of part 2 of our story. Part 3 is tomorrow night. Isn't it getting intriguing? I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.